Thank you, everybody, for joining us here at Hope for Our Times. And guess who's with me? My good Israeli friend, Avi Lipkin, is with us today. Avi, thank you so much for joining me here. Wow, so much to talk about.
Yeah.
So that's not you. You're never short on words. So if you're ready, I'm just gonna start rolling, and let's take off. I've talked a lot about what you've said recently about a Holocaust coming to America. We've done a few different videos on my channel, plus on his channel TV, and we're starting to see things increase. And I want to go there in a few more minutes. But if we could start here, what's your assessment of Israel's current campaign in Gaza? What's going on and what's not?
Okay, well, firstly, we did not want this war that started on October 7, 2023. We didn't want it, but God has his own plan. And, we were afraid, we Israelis were afraid that if we look in a crooked way at Gaza, they're going to fire missiles at us. They were, burning our fields. They were, firing at us. They were doing demonstrations all night so that our kibbutz people couldn't go to sleep at night. They were doing horrible things, burning our crops. And then we had this Nova party, which was supposed to be in Tel Aviv. I don't know what happened, but it got transferred over to the Gaza border, which was crazy. Why would they do something like that? And then when the missiles started flying, and there were hang gliders going over the border from Gaza into Israel, and they saw these thousands of young Israeli kids dancing, having a good time. The original plan of Gaza was to attack cities on the border there. But when they saw so many thousands of kids dancing and having a good time, they said, forget about that. Let's just go kill these young kids. And so the war started out as a war of annihilation of young kids dancing at a party. And then, so 1,200 kids died, 800 soldiers and policemen who just happened to be in the area went to fight these monsters. But the army was absent. The army was not getting orders to attack or even to defend. The army was not getting orders to cancel the party, get people away from the border area. There was absolute treason going on among the top Israeli military leadership. They didn't notify Netanyahu that all this was happening. There was 6 hours. Things that were going on that were just, we didn't even want this war. And I don't know, the top Israeli generals pretended that nothing was happening. And we lost 2,000 people in one day. It's not just losing people, that it was raping and chopping people up and taking babies and cooking them in the microwave. These Hamas people, you can't say they were animals because that would be offensive to the animals. And what happened was the behavior of Hamas was so outrageous that all of Israel, including many of the left-wing people from the kibbutzim on the border there, they all came up against Gaza, and it really united the people of Israel, even though you hear about the deep state people demonstrating and the Kaplan Street people. But guess what? It's been a year and 8 months. We have ground down the Hamas. We have ground down their capabilities. I would say 95% of the war is finished. The rest of these terrorists, these animals, are under the ground. And what the Israeli army is doing now is trying to flush them out systematically. And so, anyone who is not Hamas and wants to live and wants to get food has to get away from the areas that the Israeli army says, don't be in those areas. Those areas are killing zones. And we're not going to finish until all these terrorists are destroyed. And Hamas is gone. If we don't do this, then there will be another October 7th in a few years, in a short time. And the next generation will have to fight all over again because we did not do the job. And our so-called head of intelligence is responsible for the deaths of thousands of our people. Very sad thing. Anyway, so God had a plan to terminate Hamas, and Hamas is getting terminated. Then Hezbollah in Lebanon started firing missiles at us. So Hezbollah got terminated. The Christians, the Druze, and the Sunnis in Lebanon are so happy. And they're saying to Israel, finish the job, destroy Hezbollah, which is backed by Iran, Hamas, backed by Iran. Then, like the hand of God, the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad collapsed. Nobody can believe how that happened. This had to have been God's hand. Then the Houthis in Yemen launched missiles, dozens of missiles at us, and they got plastered also by the American-British coalition. And of course, the Israeli Air Force did a remarkable job. And now the Israeli military is in a situation where we are ready at any time to strike at Iran. And we could finish the job in Gaza much more quickly. These are the two things that have to be finished. And President Trump, of course, for the sake of the American economy, took trillions of dollars, from the Islamic world. I'm not talking against him, but therefore, President Trump has to listen to what Qatar, the great enemy, Qatar is an enemy state, what Qatar is saying and the other Arab countries. So we are now in a kind of a waiting period to see what's going to happen. I personally believe that the Israeli Air Force is going to strike Iran virtually at any minute, even though Trump says don't. Biden also said don't. We did many things that Biden said don't, and we did it anyway, and it had to be done. And it should never be forgotten. In 1982, I think it was, 1981, 82, the Israeli Air Force under Menachem Begin took out the Iraqi nuclear project. President Reagan went nuts. He went ballistic. Then afterwards, President Reagan said, Israelis did the right thing. Then there was in Deir ez-Zor in Syria, another nuclear facility, and the Israeli government took it out. The Israeli government got condemned by the United States. And afterwards, the American government said, oh, you know what? They were right. They were right. And so often the American government says to Israel, don't. But the logical thing is, yes, do it. And we do it, and then we get condemned. And then afterwards, the American government says, yeah, you did the right thing. And with Iran, we cannot leave Iran alone. Iran cannot develop the nuclear weapon because they're going to erase us from the face of the earth. We had enough with the Holocaust. And I think what we saw in Boulder with this crazy Egyptian guy, 45-year-old, nuking 8 people with Molotov cocktails. And you know what? There are thousands of these people who illegally gained entry into the United States under Biden. Thousands of these terrorists. And the word on the street now in Israel also is that America is under imminent threat of attack from the jihadis. And they are backed by the Chinese and they are backed by the Russians. And I think we're going to see a coordinated terror attack on America by all these forces. I pray for America. I'm here now trying to spread the warning.
So let me ask you a couple of questions here. So we look at what happened in D.C. and then we see what happened in Boulder, Colorado. So you have D.C. is definitely anti-Semitic attack. Boulder, Colorado, you have Gentiles that are there, along with the Holocaust survivor that were attacked, and that Gentiles that support Israel, like myself. And you look at this coming. You've talked about this before. A couple of questions I want to ask you. One of them is about your Bible block party, and why do you feel it was important to start it? The other is this, and let's go here first. You've been warning about Islamic extremism for decades. What is it that people still don't understand when they see these things? And we watch what's happening on college campuses. We know the borders have been blown open in America. Everybody can see what's happening in Europe. Europe is just being taken over by Islam. And the government seems to be encouraging it. Canada's in trouble. But what is it that people just don't understand?
Well, I'll get, again, I'm 76, I'm old, so I kind of remember stuff going quite a ways back. But, you look at Europe, and I don't know if you remember the Yom Kippur War in 1973, and the Islamic world established a boycott against any country that went with Israel. And so the European countries were given an ultimatum by the Islamic world. You take in millions and millions of our people, otherwise you're not going to get any oil. And so Europe stopped getting oil, and so they all buckled under, and they took in all these millions of Muslim people into all these European countries. And now Europe is getting taken over by Islam completely. And the true original inhabitants of Europe are now waking up and seeing that they've lost their countries. And the same thing's happening in America. America either goes with the Muslims or it will be destroyed by the Muslims. This is an international triumphalist program by Islam, and bringing in Muslims into America or bringing Muslims into Europe. This is called hijrah. Hijrah in Arabic means war by immigration. Bring the Muslims in and then alter the character of the country and make it closer and closer to Islam. I have to tell you, I spend a lot of time when I'm in the States, in Texas, and all of a sudden, a big chunk of Dallas, Texas, is going to become an Islamic city following Sharia law. That's complete insanity. And so I heard that the court stopped it, but there's so much money involved. America's being taken over by Islam.
Yeah, I'm looking at all of these different dynamics going on. I want to ask you about the Abraham Accords possibly expanding into Lebanon in just a second. And also, we're going to get to a Holocaust coming to America. But first of all, I just want to let everybody know, and also I'm going to ask you about your Bible blocks. I have a lot of things to ask you, but first of all, I want to let everybody know, listen, I have a book that is coming out at the end of June. It's Israel's Place in God's Eternal Plan. And this book is for everybody who partners financially with Hope for Our Times. It's going to be downloadable, ebook. It's going to be on audio. It will not be on Amazon. It's not even going to be sold on Hope for Our Times. It's only for people who partner with us tonight, because I want to thank you. I just want to thank you guys so much for coming alongside and just saying, hey, I like what you do. And in this regarding Israel, I'll just give you what some of the chapters are. There's 14 different chapters. I might even add one more, or maybe even two, but one of the chapters, the divine purpose for Israel. Another chapter, the historical journey of Israel. The role of prophecy in Israel's story is another one. The Davidic covenant and Jerusalem's future. Chapter 11, the messianic hope of Israel. Another chapter, Israel and the nations. Here's another chapter, church's role in supporting Israel. But 14 chapters now. I might add one or two more, but it is for you guys as my way. I just want to bless you guys because you've blessed me by supporting us financially and partnering with us. And again, it's not going to be available on Amazon or even for sale on HopeForOurTimes.com, but it's just for you guys. So it's my thank you. If you want to support us financially, you can do that. Just go to the website, HopeForOurTimes.com, and you can see how you can do that, and you will receive this. It's coming at the end of June, so you will get it. And just want to thank all of you for your support. Okay, Avi, back to you. Okay, I have so many questions to ask you. Let me start here. Let's go with the Bible block first of all. You started the Bible block. You have your own ministry to get the word out. We've shown it on the monitors for everybody to see that's watching, but what's the name of your ministry? What do you hope to do? What's the Bible block? And then we're going to go through the rest of these very important questions too.
Okay, well, I was born in New York. I was born in the United States. I moved when I was 19. I moved to Israel, and that was 56 years ago. I served in the Israeli army in different capacities over 30 years. I was a senior editor and translator in the Prime Minister's office. And I was always very interested in Israeli politics. And I noticed something which did not make any sense. And that is, Israel is a democracy, it's supposed to be a democracy. We have Muslim citizens in Israel who are sworn to destroy the state of Israel, and they are represented in our Knesset. The Knesset is like the Congress. Many Americans don't know what the word Knesset is. Actually, Knesset is the same word as ecclesia, which is a place of gathering. Knesset is a place of gathering. In Hebrew, it's the same root. And I noticed that we have in Israel 2% of our population is Arab Christian, and 6% of our population is Russian Christian. 1% of the population is Ethiopian Christian. And they're Israeli citizens because they're married to Jews. They're part of the body of Israel. And yet there is not one Christian in the Knesset. There are no representatives in the Knesset. And I couldn't understand, why do the Muslims have 10 members of Knesset and the Christians don't have one? Now, I did not create a Christian party. I created a Judeo-Christian alliance because after 35 years of working in the Christian world, all over the world, I came to the conclusion it cannot be that Christians bless us and then we turn our backs on them and we don't bless the Christians back. I'm not talking about the Christians living in America or other countries. I'm talking about Christians who live in Israel, who are part of the body of Israel. Actually, one of the great challenges in what I'm doing is I have to campaign in Arabic, Hebrew, Russian, English, and Amharic. Amharic is the language of Ethiopia. And, in America, such a big country, and you barely hear of a second language, Spanish. But here, in Israel, such a small country, and we have to campaign in 5 languages. Every community has its own leadership. And so I have to work with all those different leaders. So it's a challenge, but as long as I'm breathing, as long as God wants me to do it, I will continue doing it until we get into the Knesset. We need 150,000 votes. But what we have today in Israel is not 150,000. We have about 600,000 Christians. And they are basically mildly ignored by the Jewish public. And I think that's not right. I think that Christians should be embraced. And I think that with what's happening in America, I think there are going to be 10 million immigrants moving to Israel, Jewish and Christian spouses. I think it's about 6 million Jews, 4 million Christians. And if the Jews have to flee to Israel and think they're going to take their Christian spouses with them. So I see a very, very big potential for the Bible Block Party, because if the population today is 10 million and tomorrow it's 20 million, in other words, half the population is coming from the United States and the West. That's a big development in Israeli modern Israeli political history. What happened in Boulder is a sign, because you've got about 30 million Muslims in America. 10% are terrorists, that's 3 million. You got neo-Nazis, about 3 million, that's 6 million. You got Black Lives Matter and the Nation of Islam by Farrakhan, that's 4 million. Right there, you have 10 million people who are armed to the teeth and ready to kill the Jews. So I think we are there. I think we are now seeing the results of all these years in which Jews are Jews, they have to be killed, or Jews are Democrats and they have to be killed. In other words, right-wing and nationalist and patriotic American Christians see the Jews as being communists, even though it's only 2/3 only. The majority vote Democrat, and 1/3 vote Republican. And I'm one of those Jews who voted for Trump 3 times because I'm also an American citizen. But so we are looking, I think, I'll say one more thing. The black people in America, many of them hate the Jews because when there's abortion, and the Jews are liberals, they support abortion, which babies are the ones who get, aborted? The black babies. So the blacks say the Jews are guilty of the genocide of black people. And also they say Jews are slumlords. All these stories are concocted to instill hatred against the Jewish people. But if you have 6 million Jews and 4 million Christians married to each other, it's 10 million, and you have 10 million with guns coming to kill them. And the Jews in America don't even want to hear about what I'm saying. It's kind of like Germany and Europe and before the Nazi invasion. Nobody wanted to hear that Hitler was going to kill all the Jews. Mm-hmm. But that's what he was going to do.
Well, I was actually going to ask you about that. If you see a connection, I wouldn't say a connection, but a similar development to what was happening with Nazi Germany, because the way I look at it, it appears that we don't have a single crystal knock that started that you could say this is the defining moment. What we appear to have is a whole bunch of them. Now that's my opinion, but as I watch things develop, it is like this, the people who hate the Jews have been given the green light. Now is the time to go for it. It's not just the college campuses anymore. That the students have been taught how evil Jews are and how evil the nation of Israel is, and that's being exported. Hence the man who murdered the 2 Jews in D.C. a couple of weeks ago. Now, this guy from Boulder, Colorado, he said he'd been planning this for a year. So if you have this many million in America, and we're watching it, I mean, I expect it to increase like you do, exponentially. And I'm really concerned about it. And and then where do they go in the nation of Israel? I know Israel, you're still dealing with the problem with the terrorists in places like Shechem and Hebron. You've got that problem, but the land is Israel's land.
Well, it even says in chapter 5, verse 21 of the Quran that Allah commanded Moses and the children of Israel to take the land. So it's very strange. Why would the Muslims all of a sudden come against it? But the bottom line is chapter 5, verse 51 of the Quran says, believers, Muslims, take neither the Jews nor the Christians for your friends. The Jews and the Christians are friends with one another. Whoever befriends them will become one of them. Allah does not guide the wrongdoer. In other words, wrongdoer is a death sentence. Muslims cannot be friends of the Jews according to what it says in the Quran, unless they are kafirs, unless they are infidels and heretics and apostates, and they go against the Quran. So here you have a Nazi system which says kill the Jews on Saturday, kill the Christians on Sunday. What exactly is not clear? I don't understand what's not clear here. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see? Do you hear of more talk of building a temple in Jerusalem?
Well, I hear about the talk, and I have to tell you, I think there should be a temple. I know some people will get offended when I say this, but I'm against animal sacrifice. And I think that animal sacrifice was a form of suppressing the bloodlust of killing our firstborn children. And instead, you sacrifice an animal. Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, and all of a sudden, God sent him a ram. So the message learned here is we shouldn't be killing our children. By the way, this is also against abortion, because abortion is killing the children. So I think there should be a house of prayer for all nations. And I'll add another thing also from what I learned from churches, where Christians say that, Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice. We don't need animal sacrifices anymore. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, there are Christians and Jews who say, yes, it's biblical that we have animal sacrifices. So they want a temple with animal sacrifices, but I don't agree with that. I think it should just be a magnificent temple, a prayer for all nations, and there should be room for the Christians. By the way, there's some ultra-Orthodox rabbis who say we don't want Christians in this new temple.
There are. I was going to ask you about that, and I do just with me as a Christian, I would say the animal sacrifices, as the New Testament tells us, were pointed to the sacrifice of Jesus who was coming, which that's what Christians believe.
Right, but the thing is, we have graduated. We are no longer in elementary school with animal sacrifices. We're already postgraduate. The Jews and Christians. There's no need for animal sacrifice.
Yeah. So when as I look at things developing, and you mentioned there's a lot of the ultra-Orthodox are Haredi. They're not friendly with Christians, but they're really their own group. And I'll see videos posted about them, but that is not all Israelis. And I think there's this misconception with Americans when they watch certain news clips or certain things on social media. They think all Israelis don't want the Christians there, which simply isn't true. You do have a sect, but they don't want Messianic Jews. In fact, they don't want anybody that's not part of their own group.
Yeah, they don't want Reform or conservative Jews either.
Yeah, they've got their own stuff going on. Do you think that is there more talk? If I go back, you were friends with Chuck Missler. So if I go back 30 years, and there's a lot of talk about building the temple back then within prophecy groups, has that talk grown any more prevalent over the years? Or are people talking about it more and wanting it more now? Or is it pretty much kind of the same? It's only within certain small groups?
Well, it's pretty much the same, even though I heard last week that there was a sacrifice of an animal. I don't know if it was where the temple is or near the temple. But there are people who are gung-ho about, killing goats and taking the blood and making a sacrifice. And like I said before, I love animals, and they're created by God. And I think we can serve God much better without money changers' tables.
Yeah, no kidding. By the way, you can visit Avi at biblicalalliance.com. I would encourage you to. Avi's become such a great friend and a great ministry, great organization. Check out what he has there, biblicalalliance.com. And also, Avi, I'm going to be coming to Israel. I have 2 trips coming up in October. So you're going to be stuck seeing me a few times. I'm just warning you ahead of time. But we will be there in October. You can check out the events page at hopeforourtimes.com. If either of those interest you, just go to the events page and scroll on down. You'll see the trips coming to Israel. And you know what? I'll even do my best to get Avi to join us for a couple hours one day so you can meet him too. Ask him your own questions. So, Avi, looking forward to seeing you when I come out then, if you're going to be there in October. But you've mentioned the Abraham Accords possibly expanding to Lebanon. Do you think that's realistic?
Yes. It will require a much more in-depth treatment of the Hezbollah. Hezbollah don't want anything with Israel, but the Christians do, the Druze do, and the Sunnis do. They realize that their worst enemy is the Hezbollah. And they said to Israel, go in and finish them off, because we can't do anything without Israel helping us. And so Israel has relations, with many people in Lebanon. And I would personally love to have diplomatic relations with Lebanon and to go and visit there. And they're saying also Syria, but Syria is slaughtering its Druze and its Christians and its Shiites, so that's not cool. Yeah. And by the way, the ISIS is still there. ISIS is killing the soldiers, believe it or not, of Giuliani, of Ahmed Ashara. So there's complete chaos, complete bedlam in Syria. So I don't know about Syria. I personally believe what is going to happen is that Israel's borders will stretch all the way from the Golan Heights to the Druze areas in Suwaida. and eventually there's going to be a road, or there's going to be a piece of territory which will go north all the way to the Druze, all the way to, what's the Druze? The Druze are on the other side of the Euphrates. So the fulfillment of Bible prophecy, that the borders go from the Nile to the Euphrates. From the Nile will be if Egypt attacks us, and Egypt is planning to attack us. I mean, the writing's on the wall, and so I don't know why people don't see it. By the way, I have a joke, which is not really very funny, but my worst enemy, you know, my worst enemy is the Jewish mother. And when I'm here in Florida, I always say, in Florida, everybody talks about golf cart. You know, that that anything further than a golf cart, you need a car. And Jewish mothers want their kids to have golf carts so that they can drive very closely to home with a battery and be home for Friday night dinner. We don't want our kids being in Damascus or Lebanon or Saudi Arabia or Yemen. We're going to take Yemen also. Why are we going to take Yemen? Because we have no choice, because they're going to keep firing rockets at us. And in the end, our Navy is going to drop off hundreds and thousands of soldiers on those islands where the Hodeida, the port of Hodeida is. And eventually we're going to have to take it, because otherwise they're going to just keep firing rockets at us all the time.
So I find that interesting. By the way, on the joke, the Jewish mother joke, do you know who Phil Rosenthal is? TV producer. He's
no, I haven't heard of it.
He has a program called Feed Phil. I'll need to send you some of the links so you can watch it. It's pretty funny. He always has these jokes at the end of the program. Used to have them with whoever his Jewish friend is that he has as a guest today. And your joke reminded me of that. He's always got something on there. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're serious, like yours, but always engaging. And so, Avi, I'm looking at things you're talking about, even Yemen. So I'm thinking of Isaiah chapter 19, which is very clear that Egypt will worship the God of Israel. The road is going to go from the Nile all the way to Assyria. There's going to be an incredible work that's going to be done. What you're mentioning when you talk about Lebanon, talking about the Druze and the Christian communities, Yemen, you start talking about these different territories. I'm looking at Gaza, and Israel keeps winning. God is clearly with the people of Israel. Bill Salas is going to be my guest here coming up in about a week or two. And he's convinced that Psalm 83 is a literal Bible prophecy still to be fulfilled, and that Israel is going to be taking these territories. I find it really interesting because we're watching some of these same territories that Israel is having victory in. And they are going to have victory in Judea and Samaria too. But with that, Israel is under so much pressure for a two-state solution. And I'm watching what UK, Canada, France are doing now, Australia. It's like everybody has come against Israel right now. It seems all these friends on the West that used to be friends, it's like their true colors are coming out. You said that a two-state solution is impossible. Why do you believe that door is closed for good? And I'm not, by the way, I'm not a supporter at all of a two-state solution. I think it's a really, really bad thing.
Well, it's not only a bad thing. You can't make peace with Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
You have to fight until victory, and that's what's going to happen. By the way, can I tell a joke?
Please do.
This is a joke that goes back 40 years to Prime Minister Shamir, President Reagan, and Brezhnev of Russia. And so God decides he's ticked off with the world. He's going to destroy the world in 2 weeks. He calls in the three leaders and says, listen, I have good news and bad news. I'm going to destroy the world in 2 weeks. Get your people ready. So President Reagan, always optimist, saying, I have good news and bad news. Good news, there is a God. I know. I spoke to him and he spoke to me. But he's a little angry. He's going to destroy the world in 2 weeks. So get ready. And so Brezhnev gets up and says, fellow Russians, I have two pieces of bad news. Firstly, we were communists. We didn't believe in God. Well, guess what? We were wrong. There is a God. I know. I spoke to him. He spoke to me. And he's going to destroy Russia. Then Shamir gets up and says, fellow Israelis, I have two pieces of wonderful news. Number one, there is a God. I know. I spoke to him. He spoke to me. And the other good piece of news, there never, ever will be Palestinian state.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Um, Thank you. I always need a good laugh. Let me ask you this. How do you see American foreign policy being influenced by the money, as you mentioned, that has been, it's coming from these Islamic nations, Qatar, you have Saudi Arabia, and I mean, you have these different Islamic nations that are going to be pouring money and already started too with the U.S.
Right.
And when I look at it, I think both Deuteronomy and Exodus talk about being careful about receiving money from your enemy. And I'm looking, going, you know, I don't, you know, I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts.
Well, you know, I think that what is going to happen is, firstly, we don't know what God thinks. We may think we know what God thinks, but God does things in a very surprising way. And so President Trump, and I'm not criticizing him, I'm saying he has to save the American economy from the damage that was caused by the Democrats. I know some of your people listening might be Democrats, but America was on the precipice of financial collapse. The American debt was impossible to maintain. And so the $2 trillion or $3 trillion that President Trump got from the Arabs, he's got to take the money and run. But seriously, though, the Islamic world has a way. We have a saying in Hebrew that God has a reason to make Pharaoh's heart stubborn, and causing the Arabs to hate the Jews and to hate the Christians. And I think they are thinking that if they give money to President Trump, then President Trump is in their pocket. But for example, last week, just before I left Israel to come to America, I saw that Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen of the Palestinian Authority, made an announcement that America is the enemy of the Palestinians, and that the Palestinians are loyal to Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. And America has given the Palestinians billions of dollars. And the United States, especially under Biden, was totally supporting the Palestinians. And yet, Mahmoud Abbas says America is the enemy of the Palestinians. I don't want to go off on a limb. I always go off on a limb, you know, but I'm very, very concerned about World War III. I'm concerned about the fifth column of Islam here in the United States, ready to subvert, and Chinese and Russians, all kinds of bad players working against the American people. And when, I don't want to use bad terminology, but as they say in English, proper Elizabethan English, when the fertilizer hits the ventilation system, President Trump will know exactly what to do, money or no money. And I'm predicting war. I'm predicting that this thing with Ukraine, the Russians are just, Putin killed 1 million people for no reason. He killed his own boys. The Ukrainians, the women are fighting alongside the men. The women are dying. I mean, you tell me, what is Putin going to get out of this? So finally, the Europeans are saying we got to put a stop. President Trump is saying we got to put a stop to the war with Russia, between Ukraine and Russia. So if if Russia decides to start using nuclear weapons, do you think that Putin will not use nuclear weapons if he feels he has to? That's World War III. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is this will be the excellent time to bring down America, destroy America. And they have their foot soldiers already on American soil. And Americans don't have a clue because you're not allowed to speak bad about Islam. You can talk bad about the Chinese. That's something Americans understand. But Islam is here, 30 million of them. 9/11 was carried out by 19 terrorists. 19. But there are thousands and thousands that Biden led into the U.S. And I'll be honest with you. My wife said to me, "Don't go to the States because it's so full of Muslims. And if anyone hears, that you're going around here, going around there, they're going to kill you." And they're not afraid to die because they get the 72 virgins. I mean, this is completely psychotic. Islam is a psychosis of death.
It is.
And America, which is the greatest Christian country on earth, has to be destroyed. That's the way Islam looks at America.
And too many people within churches, too many pastors they totally do not get it. It is a death cult, and these guys just embrace it. Like they don't understand the line and the direction that Islam does actually go. Let me ask you this, Avi. What do you mean when you say that God's providence ensures Israel's survival?
Well, listen, you believe in the Bible. I believe in the Bible. True Christians, true Jews believe in the Bible. There are prophecies there. And the question is God a liar or not? And what we saw on October the 7th, with all the pain involved, was a whole lot of prophecies that are now all of a sudden unraveling in front of our very eyes. And, President Trump said, send the Gaza Arabs to other countries. If I had said that before October 7th, I would be put in jail in Israel. But if President Trump said it, this is a fulfillment of prophecy that he said it. I think what we're going to be seeing is we're going to be seeing things that we never would have dreamt of a few years ago.
It's how so. As I look at the dynamic of what's going on over in Israel, even just recently in Israel, we have, I think it was Netanyahu that said, hey, let's take the terrorists out of Judea and Samaria and send them to other places. Let's get them out of Israel.
Eventually, that will happen.
Okay, because somehow...
Why will it happen? It'll happen because we have no choice.
Okay, because right now there are more and more communities within Israel that are growing. When I was in the area of, it was Mount Gerizim and Ebal just recently, right? It was when I saw you. I was just there probably the day before, and it's clear Israel has a problem in those areas, and they have to be cleared out. This is the other thing. When I look at just, if I were to just take the area of Shechem alone, and Avi, I believe it is a spiritual battle for Shechem because you have Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. You have both the 6 tribes of Israel on one mountain, 6 tribes of Israel on the other. Joshua goes through it. I think it's Joshua chapter 24, where you have them with the blessings and the cursings that are from Deuteronomy. And you have the priests, the Levites down at the bottom of the valley where Shechem is, and Joshua's down there, and the people shout out, "Will you? We will. We will." It was a marriage covenant between God and the land, and with the people of Israel. And Satan knows that this is a spiritual battle for the battle of the land, and I believe this is why Hebron, in the area of Shechem, are such a problem. 2 massive problem areas, because personally I think the devil is involved in it, because this is God's land. I think of Hebron, this is where David is first anointed king with the tribe of Judah, and this is what's happening. It's spiritual, and I don't think people realize the spiritual dynamic that is really there, that's hidden behind the scenes, because they're only paying attention to politics, and they don't get politics. I think, when I look at Steve Witkoff, this is my opinion. You don't have to comment on it. So I look at Steve Witkoff, I'm thinking, I don't think these guys get it. You can't negotiate with terrorists.
I agree. But see, the problem with Steve Witkoff is that he was bankrupt. He made a bad deal for a hotel in Manhattan, and Qatar gave him $600 million to pull him out of bankruptcy. So they owned him.
You're definitely owned at that point. You've spoken out against replacement theology. Why
Correct.
Is this such a spurious issue for you?
Well, it says in the New Testament in Romans that Israel is the olive tree, the Jews are the roots, and the Christians are the branches. Anybody who tries to kill the roots kills the branches, and anyone who tries to kill the branches kill the roots. The Jews and the Christians, forgive me for saying it, are stuck with each other. And we are the people of the book. This is the very first thing my wife taught me when I met her on January 14th, 1970. And she said, Jews and Christians, by the way, I have to correct you about something. Okay. You said we Gentiles. Excuse me, you're not Gentiles. Gentiles are the pagans, are the Muslims. Christians are part of Israel. They're not Jewish, but they're part of the tree of Israel, of the olive tree. So replacement theology basically is saying, well, guess what? There are no roots. We're just the branches, and we are the true Israel. No, God is not a liar. And in the New Testament, it says the Jews are the roots, the Christians are the branches. So right there, you have a very clear explanation against replacement theology.
Great, thank you. Again, everyone, you can find Avi at biblicalalliance.com. I would highly encourage you to go to his website. You'll be really, really blessed. Avi, a couple more questions for you. You've warned about what's coming to Jews in America, and also, obviously, with Boulder, Colorado, what's coming to those who support Jews and support Israel here in America. That number is growing smaller. When I look at it, I'm warning Christians right now, you better be prepared, because as of today, you might say, I stand with Israel, but as the pressure increases against the people of Israel and against the Jews and those who stand with Israel, I think it's going to be another part of people who won't come along and support Israel. They're going to go away. People who are support, yeah.
That's the falling away.
I totally agree. I look at it almost like Gideon's army, where God kept removing people until he had his army. But it's when I look at it back in the days of Nazi Germany, it was a small amount of people, even though they might have known that what the Nazis were doing was wrong, they still kept their mouth shut. They wouldn't support. It was a small number of Christians who supported the Jews during the days of Nazi Germany. And I think there's probably a smaller number than what currently does. It's going to come down to the wire. I think we're rapidly approaching that. But you're warning to, what would be something that you could encourage people to stay strong in? And also, what would be your warning to Jews who are here in America that they need to be looking out for?
Well, firstly, like I've said throughout this taping that we're doing, this recording, if you believe in God and you believe in the Bible, then you know that his word is true, and you're not going to lose any sleep about it at night, because everything God says happens. It might happen in a year from now or 10 years from now. Listen, I've been in Israel now for 55 years, and I see unraveling before my very eyes the miracles that God is doing for this country. And part of the miracles will be that the Jews and the Christians will reconcile and be together. Anybody who opts out, that's their own problem. But those Christians and Jews who opt to be together, this is a miracle after 2,000 years. So I'm very excited. The Bible Block Party is an alliance of Jews and Christians who are Zionists and follow God's word. And so I'm very excited about that. Regarding the American Jews really live in a country club. Now, when you live in a country club, and even you go to the synagogue on Shabbat, and there's a very nice meal after the service, and everybody's slapping each other on the back and laughing and telling jokes. I know, because I go to synagogue and see it. Do you think the rabbis would say, Avi, get up and tell us about the coming Holocaust in America? No, because the rabbis don't want to lose their pulpits. They don't want to lose their synagogues. And it's like Europe in the 1930s, where the rabbis said, don't go to Palestine, don't go to America, stay here. The Germans would never do anything. And 6 million died because the rabbis gave the wrong explanation. The rabbis didn't understand what Nazism was. And so I'm saying to the American Jews, you have no idea what's about to happen. Wow. You are like deer on the highway with your eyes being blinded. Wow. It breaks my heart. By the way, synagogues never invite me to speak. The only people who invite me to speak are you guys.
They're they're afraid you're bringing too much bad news, I guess. You know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but listen, we're out of time, but you know, God is on the throne, and God is sovereign, and I know because I've read the Bible, both Old Testament and New Testament, Israel will always be here.
Right.
The Jews will always be here. I say the
Correct.
Messiah is coming again. You're saying the Messiah is coming the first time. But as we look at this, we understand something. God's word will be fulfilled. And
Amen.
and he made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and God will fulfill his purpose. He will fulfill his role. He says, my name is on that covenant that I made, Ezekiel chapter 36. We can follow it all the way through to the end in the book of Revelation and see Israel will always be here. And Avi, I thank you so much for joining me today. I was willing to come on our program and present the truth, even when people don't want to hear the truth. There's a lot of people who go to churches that don't want to hear any of this too. And I'm watching,
Right.
as you're watching, we're watching more and more churches turn against the nation of Israel. And by the way, again, everybody, I would love to have you join us on one of our upcoming tours to Israel. Lord willing, we'd love to have you. It'll be great. I have a couple coming up this year still, and also on into 2026. And I will be visiting Avi when I'm there. I'll even try to get him to see all of you guys too. Maybe say a couple of words to us all. You'll be blessed meeting Avi if I can work that out too. But it's coming up at the end of the year. Again, visit Avi's webpage, biblicalalliance.com. And please keep him in your prayer. And as God's prayer request is Psalm 122, verse 6, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Remember, folks, that is God's prayer request. People say, I'm not going to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Hey, God's saying, you aren't going to pray my prayer request? That is God saying it to us. Pray for the
Right.
peace of Jerusalem. So there you go. Avi, final word for everybody?
Well, you know what? It's good to be on the winning side. And we are at a time in history, Christianity started 2,000 years ago. The Jewish people have been around 4,000 years. And so much prophecy is being fulfilled right now. Things that people might have been alive 2,000 or 4,000 years ago, and they didn't see it. And now we are seeing everything, all the pieces of the puzzle coming together. Praise God.
Amen. We are indeed. Thank you very much, Avi. Look forward to connecting with you soon. And everybody, listen, join us tomorrow. Be back here tomorrow with the Tom Hughes Report, and also tonight with Today in Prophecy, my daily news briefing. God bless you guys. See ya.